We going raw today, guys. Remember, I told you Wednesdays are going to be these raw podcasts where we don't have, all of the bells and whistles. We'll have some of them. We won't have all of them. Hopefully this goes well. We'll see. This is really the test run for this. Looking forward to doing this moving forward. There are going to be probably a few minor wrinkles here and there, but man, we got a lot of stuff to talk about today. Dudes are wilding, shit's happening, lot to talk about. I can't wait. Let's get to the proceedings this evening. You're locked in to the 180th installment of the LouieTeeNetwork podcast that starts, and I hope you can hear me. I'm not talking to myself now. Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T? Welcome to the 180th installment of the LouieTeeNetwork podcast. I, of course, am your set man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Man, we got a lot to get to today. So many things have happened. I've got a brand new segment to unveil today. So we're going to talk about that. Let's move this mic a little bit closer. I don't know if I felt like my mic was a little loud. Maybe I need to move it away a little bit. I like the mic being in the shot. Felt like I was a lot louder than I wanted to be the last couple of episodes, but then I turned it down and then people, I can't hear you, Louie T. Obviously, I've been on mute the last couple of episodes to start. Hopefully that is not the case this time around. But I can tell you this, with all of the things transpiring, we've got a lot of different topics to jump into. Real quick, if you are a CCS subscriber, we'll be live tonight with an NFL mix and rip. So if you are a card collector series subscriber, we'll be doing that tonight, 8:30 p. Hopefully you can join me and take part of the festivities. That said, let's jump into this episode of the LouieTeeNetwork podcast because this one is crazy. New segment unveiling today. One, we'll get to that a little bit later on. The Rams, they have a new uniform that they are unveiling, a throwback uni that we'll get to at some point today. But we got to start the show with a Gem Droppin Session. That's just the way things go around here. So let's just go ahead and do that. Everything is just all out of whack. Let me drop this gem on your melon. Open your mind, let your conscience be free. You're now rolling with your man, Louie T double E. Let me open you up. Get to thinking a little bit. We weren't going to talk Dick Sherman today, but then Dick Sherman started wilding. So we got to talk Dick Sherman today. So let's talk about Dick Sherman. All right. And Dick Sherman is a guy that has been out on the free agent market. Someone that we just assume will get to training camp. There'll be an injury or two. His phone will ring and he'll be on a team before the start of the 2021 NFL season. That still may be the case, right? However, things just got a bit more complicated for old Dick Sherman, okay? He had a minor run-in. I don't know if I want to call it minor or not. Don't really know the circumstances surrounding his situation. But anytime we're talking felony, we start using the F word. Misdemeanors, we sweep those under the rug. We start using the F word. We're talking felony. Uh-oh, somebody's in trouble. And that's what we have essentially right now with Dick Sherman. So let's jump into his situation because Dick could be on the hook for not one, but two infractions here, separate situations. Again, we don't know the full spectrum of either story, so I don't like to speculate, but I'll just put this out there because this is what's been reported to this point. So I will read you an excerpt from an article written on the NFL.com website. And so let's go through this real quick. Free agent cornerback Richard Sherman was arrested near Seattle on Wednesday morning and booked on a charge of burglary, domestic violence, according to public records. The 33-year-old veteran was booked in King County, Washington Correctional Facility in Seattle at 6:08 a.m. Pacific time and currently has been denied bail, which is a standard procedure for anyone arrested on any charge related to domestic violence, per the King County Superior Court Clerk's Office. A Redmond police news release stated that Sherman allegedly arrived at a family member's house early Wednesday morning and tried to force his way into the home, and officers were called onto the scene. According to Redmond police, when officers arrived, Sherman was outside of the house. Per police, Sherman allegedly was not compliant, got into an altercation with officers. A canine dog was deployed, and he soon after was taken into custody by the police. So, let's stop there. Okay, we didn't get to the other half of this puzzle that is really complicated to solve. So the reason I don't want to jump down Dick Sherman's throat and talk about anything, again, and I generally try to stay away from off the field transgressions because we don't know the entire story. We only get one side of it. And so I don't really want to get into particulars, but obviously you have to take into consideration, well, why did he go to that family member's house? What is going on? And you have to put yourself in his shoes. What if your sister calls you and says that her boyfriend is slapping her around, she needs some help? You're going right over to her house and you're trying to get in. Maybe he locked the door and you're trying to force your way in because you're looking to beat his ass. So you don't know what the circumstances are, so we can't talk about what's wrong and what's right. All I can tell you is that apparently he was trying to get into someone's home. That home was not his. The police were called. He was arrested. He refused to go quietly. They had to deploy the canines. The rest is history. So he's in jail currently for that. Now, this is a separate issue. We can get into this one here in a second. So here's the other part of this thing. Redmond police said a secondary police unit, the Washington State Patrol, was also involved in the case. The State Patrol said troopers were called to a single car collision on a Seattle area off-ramp early Wednesday morning, in which Sherman's vehicle allegedly struck a cement barrier. The vehicle was abandoned in a nearby parking lot, and a hit and run was issued due to the abandoned nature of the vehicle, per State Patrol. Troopers ran the vehicle's license plates, which was linked to Dick Sherman. So there could be another charge, hit and run, and the defacing of a I think because I think it was in a federal building or statue or whatever he hit was something that was owned by the state. So I don't know. It could get a little bit more complicated. The bottom line here is on the second part, we don't know if he was the driver of that vehicle. He could have multiple cars in his name. Someone else could have been driving. We don't know the circumstances. That could have been the reason for the call. Somebody could have wrecked a car that was in his name. That same premise. I'm just throwing this random, and this is random. I don't know if any of this stuff occurred. Obviously, I'm making this stuff up. This is a hypothetical situation, but let's say that he bought a car for his sister. She's got a boyfriend. He takes the car. They get into it. He takes the car, and she's pissed off. She calls her brother, Dick Sherman. Her boyfriend wrecks the car. The car's in Dick Sherman's name, mind you. He wrecks the car. He panics. He gets out of the car. He takes off on foot. He drives off the interstate. He leaves it abandoned on the side of the road. He takes off on foot. All right. He goes back to the house and proceeds to get into it with Dick Sherman's sister. Again, I'm making all of this up, but this is how this could have transpired. We don't know. This is why you don't jump to conclusions. I'm just telling you, it doesn't look good for Dick Sherman. So he could have not been driving the car. His sister could have called him. Anything could have happened. Could have been his aunt, could have been his mom, could have been anybody. We don't know the circumstances surrounding the situation. Or Dick Sherman could just be tripping. Okay. I sat here for 5 minutes and just gave you every plausible explanation as to why he could be in the right here. Or, and this is just a thought, he could just be tripping. Okay. He could just be wilding right now, and he may have done a lot of things that he shouldn't have done, and he could find himself in a lot of hot water. Either way, I'm going to tell you right now, does it sound like a guy that's ready to work here in the next couple of weeks or even a month? I'm not saying, I'm just saying, Dick Sherman needed to be ready and waiting for the phone to ring. His phone is ringing right now, but for all the wrong reasons. So that is a very sticky situation that he finds himself in right now. But yikes. I always told you guys out there, and I know this is no laughing matter. It's not funny, and I don't mean to crack jokes, but I've always told you never, ever trust a man with 2 first names. This is the shit I'm talking about right here. Okay. This is what I warned you about, trusting people with 2 first names. You're seeing exactly why. We'll see if Dick Sherman gets work, because this is the kind of thing that could end your career. This is the last straw. You already weren't on a roster right now. You already were on the outside looking in, trying to get into the league. This could be the final straw that puts you on the outs for good. We'll see. Anyhow, I digress. This Gem Droppin Session is going to act as, and in case you missed it, so in case you missed the Dick Sherman saga, we just kind of recap that quickly. Obviously, that it's just starting. More to come with that as the days progress. Hopefully, things end well for Dick Sherman, and we'll see what happens there. But in case you missed it, we've been talking about free agents, right? Talked about free agency, and I gave you a list of all the guys that were slapped with the franchise tag, and I told you I didn't think any of them would get a long-term deal done. We are 1 day away, and not a single guy has gotten a new deal, and it really has been quiet on that front. But we did get some information regarding one of the remaining 7, I believe it is, 7 franchise taggies. Let's see how many we got. It's either 6 or 7. I think it's 7. Let's see. It is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it is 7. So 7, the remaining 7 franchise taggees. The Jets safety Marcus May. We talked about him. I said the Jets, they claim they love him, but I told you it's a different regime. The GM that drafted him, not currently in New York anymore. You know, Mike McCagnon drafted him. Joe Douglas is now in charge in New York. Different head coach. You know, he was in New York with all the dysfunction with Adam Gase. He's now being coached by Robert Saleh. I thought Saleh might value what Marcus May brings to the table, and maybe he does. But again, you know, there's always a price to everything. And apparently the Jets decided they wanted to lowball Marcus May. And this is the frustrating part about being a free agent, is that you're at the mercy of the team, especially when you play a position where the money that you feel like you're owed and the money on the franchise tag aren't necessarily ideal. I told you teams are abusing the franchise tag now. They're not using it for the purposes that it was created. And that's the frustrating part when you're a player, is that you want to test free agency because you know there's more money out there for you. And reportedly, there was probably upwards of, $13, $14 million a year on an annual average for Marcus May. And the Jets essentially said, we're gonna lowball you by about a 20% under the franchise tag. So what the Jets essentially did is they came to Marcus May with an offer of a long-term deal that was averaging 20% below the annual per year average basis of the franchise tag. The franchise tag right now is at $10.6 million. So and this has all been reported by Ian Rappaport. So if what Ian Rappaport is reporting is accurate, the Jets came in at about $8.5 million per year for Marcus May's services. And he's saying to himself, are you guys effing kidding me? Are you serious? Like, this is the best you can do? You do realize that the franchise tag is 10.6. So if I don't sign your stinking ass, funky $8.5 million deal and you slap the tag on me, I'm making more money than you're offering me in a long-term deal. What is your problem? What are you guys doing right now? What are you trying to prove? And on the table for May were other deals where he would have been making 12, 13, potentially $14 million per year. And the Jets said, well, you're not going anywhere. You don't like our deal? Fine. We'll slap the franchise tag on you, $10.6 million. That's when players get frustrated. And they understand that it's a business, but it still sucks. It doesn't make it any better just because somebody says, well, it's a business. That doesn't make it any better. I still want my money. Where's my bread at? And if I could have gotten a deal 3 years, $42 million, that's 14 per year, I would much rather have that over a 1 year, $10.6 million deal. So That's frustrating if you're Marcus May. And they're getting an extra year of service out of him. And I talked about that's how teams are utilizing the franchise tag. You can't tell me out of one side of your mouth, you really love me and that you're doing everything in your power to keep me on board. And then you offer me on the other side of your mouth, you're offering me a deal that's 20% below franchise tag and market value money. And really, market value for Marcus May is probably upwards of $13-14 million. So they're probably more so 50%, closer to 40% under market value for Marcus May. That's a shame. That's a shame. When you've put in the work and you've earned a contract and this is how they do you, that's why the franchise tag, that's why players can't stand the franchise tag because of uses of it like this. And again, the safety position, what did I tell you guys on last podcast? That the safety position is one of those positions where you can use the franchise tag because it's not going to cost you a ton of money. It's not going to hurt you. You can't play these types of games with receivers. Why? Because you're going to be paying that receiver $17-18 million on a franchise tag. I mean, if you want to play that game like the Bears did, knock yourself out. But that guy he's eating good with $18 million versus 10. And we're talking between 10 and $18 million as if it's, peanuts. It's a lot of money, but I get it. 10 million is a lot of money too. It's not 18 million. And you got to remember, Uncle Sam's going to stick, depending on where you play, Uncle Sam's going to reach his hand in your wallet and say, hey, all of that ain't yours, right? Let me get my piece right here before you start spending shit on cars and jewelry and shit. You get some drip. Give me my money first. So before it's all said and done, that 18 isn't really 18. That 10 really ain't 10. So you got to get your money, get all of your bread. It's when people get upset about talking about millions upon millions of dollars, just think of it like this. If you want to break it down to your level, just think of it like this. Somebody owes you a dub, okay, $20. And they come back to you and they say, hey, I got $7 for you, man. You're like, hey, bro, where the hell is my other $13 at? In the grand scheme of things, is $13 a hell of a lot of money? Nah, you're not going to die if you don't get $13. But guess what? You want your damn $13, right? Same thing here, okay? And we may be talking about millions upon millions of dollars, but guess what? The reason the rich stay rich is because they don't play with their money. They want every single penny, every single one. So same thing here. I want my money. All right. You offering me $8.5 million per year on a deal. That's a slap in the face. Shame on the Jets for that. And I don't blame Marcus May for not on. And then he still had a clear head and an open mind enough to say, hey, even though that's disrespectful, what y'all tried to do to me, I'm going to let bygones be bygones. I'm going to act in good faith, and I'm going to treat this as a business transaction. So I'm not going to let my feelings get involved, which a lot of players do, let their feelings get involved and get hurt. He said, I'm going to come with a counter offer, something that seems more reasonable. Jets haven't even taken a look at that. They said, okay, yeah, that's nice. They're like, you're not even going to open it and look? Nah, we don't need to. We got this $10.6 million franchise tag that you want. So we know it's more than that. We ain't trying to spend that. So he's like, really, y'all going to do that bullshit? Man, give me back my damn deal. Okay, I'm going to play on your little funky franchise tag. I ain't coming back next year. I'm not saying that's what he said, but he may be thinking that in his head. You don't want to piss players off, man. You never know what they're thinking in their head. We'll see what happens. And especially when the player's been so good like Marcus May has for the Jets. In case you missed it, ex-NFL wide receiver Jordan Matthews added 15 pounds and will work out this weekend as a tight end at the Hub Camp in San Diego. He attended Tight End U and has been working out in Nashville with a group of tight ends, including George Kittle and Robert Tonyan. Again, this is from Ian Rappaport as well. So we've seen this trend a lot this offseason. We talked about Brandon Jacobs getting big, and he talking about, hey, I'd love a shot to be somebody's defensive end. I just want a chance. If I'm not good enough, you can cut me. I just want a shot to play defensive end. Bro, you was a running back, though. And you like 38 years old. And you trying to switch positions? And you want me to teach you how to play this new position? At 38 years old? Come on. Give me a break. Well, this is one of those fan ideas right here, and God bless Jordan Matthews' heart, because we know what this is. This is a last-ditch attempt at him saving his career. Like, this dude has had 87 different opportunities at receiver, and he's been ousted out of every single one of them. There have been better options. He hasn't performed, whatever the case may be. And so he was on the outs in the NFL. And his only way to get back in, and this is what fans do. Hey, you don't like a player or you got a log jam at a position and you don't have enough at another position. Fans do this fantasy football, Madden shit all the time. Hey, why doesn't he gain 15 pounds and play tight end? Why doesn't he gain 15 pounds and play linebacker? Well, Jordan Matthews is actually gaining 15 pounds and trying to make a switch to tight end. There you go. We'll see if it works. I actually saw him step on a scale. He weighed 236 pounds. That's very, very light for a tight end. But there are tight ends in this league that are south of 240. But in my mind, I'm saying, bro, you gained 15 just to get to 236. I don't know if there's much more space for you to put on more weight. Like, can he gain another 10 and get to 246? Highly unlikely. I'm not saying it's impossible, but the likelihood is he's not going to be able to gain another 10 pounds to get to a real tight end weight. But 236 is a little too light. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. This is what he's training for. I wish him nothing but the best. But we've seen several guys. I mean, add him to the list. You know, Kelvin Benjamin, reportedly going to get an opportunity with the Giants in camp. They have him listed as a wide receiver, but if he looks anything like he did the last time I saw him, his ass is a tight end. Okay? But we'll see what happens. So good for Jordan Matthews. Hopefully it works out for him. In case you missed it, you guys, what do you think about these Rams unis? So the Rams reportedly are going to have new white, modern throwback uniforms. What do you think? So remember, if you recall last year when the Rams unveiled these new jerseys, there was a lot of pushback. Eric Dickerson, a Rams legend, said that they were soft uniforms. I don't blame him. I wasn't a massive fan. I didn't think they were terrible, but I didn't love them. But remember, the color structure was a little bit different. They didn't have a lot of yellow in the uniform last year. They didn't wear yellow pants at all. The three colors, if I'm not mistaken, were blue on blue, blue top, and I want to say blue top, bone bottom, and then they had bone on bone, which was the bone top, bone bottom. But they didn't have yellow really introduced. You know, there was little accents of yellow, the horns on the ram, and you know, the on the shoulders there might have been a little yellow, and I think the numbers on the blue jerseys were yellow, but they didn't have yellow pants at all last year. In no one in any of their color scheme. And remember, the bone wasn't white, it was bone. So it's an off-white, like a grayish type color. This year they're bringing back the whites and they're putting it against the yellow backdrop on the pants. I like it. It looks a lot better than the uniforms they wore last year, but again, it's still the same uniforms from last year, but I like it. I like this better than the uniforms they wore last year. And in no point last year did I like the Rams uniform. I can get with this right here. It reminds me of the LA Rams. It's closer to that than what they were wearing last year when they were trying to be different purposefully. This feels a little bit more like what the LA Rams are supposed to look like. So I think these are really dope. And this is better than what they rolled out last year. So love to hear from what you guys think about those unis right there for the Rams. In any event, we are going to take a quick break. We'll come back on the other side of the break. We'll jump into a brand new segment called One, and then we will get to your comments, social media maneuvers, all of that good jazz, and then some. So stay tuned. You are locked in to the 180th installment of the Louie T Network podcast. I will see you guys on the other side. Have a good one. I want to take the time first to thank Manscaped for sponsoring the Louie T Network podcast. Summer's coming. Are you ready to unveil your beach bod? You're in luck. Our friends over at Manscaped just launched their 4th generation performance package, which includes the Lawnmower 4.0. You heard that right. The 4.0. Compliment your dad bod or six pack. Okay, I don't want to offend anybody out there. You're working hard. You got that six pack. Show it off and trim with the leaders in male grooming. The sun is shining and it's calling your name, fellas. Join the 2 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped and get ready for hot guy summer with 20% off plus free shipping by going to manscaped.com and using the promo code LouieT. Let's get to what's inside of this magnificent package. First off, the new Performance Package 4.0 includes the new Lawnmower 4.0. This trimmer is insane. Dare I say it's the GOAT of ball trimmers? Yeah, I just said that. Okay, their 4th generation trimmer features a cutting-edge ceramic blade to reduce grooming accidents thanks to their advanced skin-safe technology. The Lawnmower 4.0 has a 7,000 RPM motor, a new multifunction on-off switch that can engage a travel lock and gives you the ability to turn the 4000K LED spotlight on and off when needed for a more precise shave. Did I mention that this trimmer is also waterproof? In the shower or in the wild, from your chest pubes all the way down to your ball fro, the Lawnmower 4.0 is the best trimmer for you. Want to take your grooming game even further to the next level? The Performance Package 4.0 also includes the Weed Whacker to chop your worst weeds up top in your nose and in your ear. And I can attest to this with a massive snossage. This Weed Whacker gets the job done. The Weed Whacker is also waterproof and uses a 9,000 RPM motor-powered 360-degree rotary blade dual system. This nose and ear trimmer also provides proprietary skin-safe technology which helps prevent nicks, snags, and tugs in those delicate holes. Seal the deal with Manscaped's liquid formulations. Before heading outside, use the Crop Preserver ball deodorant to keep your game in the heat. Then after trimming the lawn and whacking the weeds in the heat, give your beach balls a boost by using the Crop Reviver. Manscaped even threw in 2 free gifts to their Performance Package 4.0, the Manscaped Boxers and the Shed Travel Bag to bring your comfort and boxers to another level. Get 20% off plus free shipping by going to manscaped.com. Promo code LouieT. That's 20% off plus free shipping by going to manscaped.com using the promo code LouieT. Escape the shrubs and weeds this summer and shine with Manscaped. Trust me when I tell you this. Your balls will thank you, and tell them your man, Louie T, sent you. All right, so welcome back to the 180th installment of the Louie T Network podcast. I, of course, am your set man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. If you haven't already done so, I want to ask you to take this time to hit the subscription button on your screen. Subscribe to Louie T Network for more great content. Turn on your notification bell so you don't miss a thing. And also, touch that like button. Don't be afraid. It won't hurt you. Touch the like button. If you're out there, really do appreciate you guys. And remember, we're about to jump into social media maneuvers. We're going to also jump into a brand new segment, and they kind of tie into one another because you guys are going to be involved in how this segment goes. So if you're out there, you want your voice to be heard, use the super chat function to jump to the front of the line. However, if you're out there and you want your comment to be read, use the hashtag LouieTLive to have your comment read on the air so I know that you are addressing me with your comment. So if you want to get involved in the conversation, and we're about to have one hell of a conversation, and this is something we're going to do with regularity on this podcast moving forward, make sure you use the hashtag LouieTLive. You want to jump to the front of the line? Super chats are the way to do that. So with that said, let's now get into our brand new segment here on the Louie T Network. And this is an exercise in fun, okay? So what we're doing here is something that is fun, but keep in mind there can only be one. Choose wisely, but there can only be one. What am I talking about? So this segment called One. One is the loneliest number that you'll ever do. It's called One because I'm going to force you to make a decision, a tough one. And you could go either way. There is no right or wrong. It's just your opinion. And I've talked about this when we talk about receivers and we start ranking receivers, when we talk about quarterbacks, we start ranking quarterbacks, we start talking about running backs or any position in the league for that matter. It all comes down to preference. When we talk about players in the draft, I could talk to 10 people and talk about 3 different prospects, and all 10 can have different opinions on why they do or don't like that prospect, why they're high or not high on that guy for whatever reason, because of preference, okay? You like certain things in a player, you don't like these things, and whatever the case may be, that's why you base your opinion. That's how you base your opinion and judgments on that player based off of the things that you either like or don't like. So in this segment, I'm going to be pitting players against one another, and you've got to choose one. So I'm trying to make it as close as possible in terms of the players that we'll be comparing to one another. I don't want to compare a big 6'5" receiver to a 5'10" receiver because they're not one and the same. All right. I want guys that look like each other, that play similar to one another and have similar skill sets, have been in the league long enough that we can compare their games, or they've been in the league the same amount of time so that there's an apples to apples comparison. And I wanted to start out with a really tough one. You know, at the receiver position, it's my favorite position to take a look at. I've got Mike Evans, a.k.a. Mikey. Hey, Mikey. And I've got can't guard Michael Thomas. All right. So these are 2 big physical wide receivers. They're not blazers by any stretch of the imagination, but one can get vertical on you and has gotten vertical on you throughout his career. The other, not so much, but he's been a high volume guy that has hurt you in the short to intermediate game over and over and over and over and over and over again. So we're going to go through the tail of the tape, and I want you guys to tell me who you would take as your one. Okay, so let's go through the tail of the tape in the battle between Michael can't guard Mike Thomas and Mikey Evans. So I start with 1,000-yard seasons, okay? And some of you are going to base your opinions off of the stats I give you. Some of you already have who you would take. You know how these guys play. You've watched their careers, and you've already made up your mind, and that's great too. But I'm just going to give you more information that you can run with. So, 1,000-yard seasons. Michael Thomas has been in the league 5 years. 4 out of his 5 seasons, he's eclipsed 1,000 yards. The only season that he did not was this past year when he was injured and only played in 7 games. So 4 out of 5 years, Michael Thomas over 1,000 yards. Mike Evans has been in the league 7 years, 7 for 7, eclipsing the 1,000-yard mark. The only receiver in NFL history. So that's a trivia question if you want to spring one on someone that they'll probably not get. Who's the only receiver in NFL history to start their career off with 7 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons? The answer to that trivia question would be one, Mike Evans. Now, there was 1 year in there where he barely got over 1,000, like literally 1,001 yards. It still counts. So 7 for 7 on the 1,000-yard season mark for Mike Evans. 4 out of 5 years for Michael Thomas this past year where he was injured. 1,400-yard seasons for me with receivers. The benchmark for an elite season is 1,400 yards, anywhere over 1,400 yards. You can have a season where you go nuts and you get 1,350. You could have a great year, go for 1,275. If you're really good, a good year is 1,100, to 1,000 yards. That's a really good season. You had a hell of a year. But if you want to talk about an elite season, when you want to put yourself in a different company, similar to as a pass rusher, once you eclipse 15 sacks, you're in a different stratosphere. You're not like the rest of the league because dudes aren't getting 15 sacks in the season. You could get lucky, have a 12 and a half sack season. If you were really good and you got some fortunate breaks, you could get 13 and a half sacks in a season. You're not going to get lucky and get 15 though. You're different. When you get 15, either you had an out-of-body experience that year or you're just different. You're built differently when you eclipse 15 sacks in a season. 1,400 yards is that same benchmark for me with receivers. You're not like the rest when you got 1,400 yards that year. Michael Thomas has 2 seasons of over 1,400 yards receiving, back-to-back years. In 2018, he went for 1,405. In 2019, he was the best receiver in all of football. 1,725 yards receiving, set the NFL record for most catches in a single season as well, with 149 in that season. Meanwhile, Mike Evans has only one 1,400 plus yard season under his belt. 100 catch seasons. So you could look at this and you could spin it one of two ways. You could look at a guy that's a high volume target, that's Michael Thomas, or you could look at it as a guy that doesn't need as many targets to be as effective, that's Mike Evans. So you can look at it, both ways. 100 catch seasons are big for me in this regard. When there aren't many other options and you're the best that your team's got and the other team knows that going into the game, and yet they still can't stop you from getting your hands on the football, that says a lot about your ability to either uncover and separate or to catch the football in traffic and be a reliable target. That said, in both situations, I've kind of felt like there haven't been a lot of other guys that can help. But in Tampa Bay, Mike Evans has had a lot more help than in New Orleans with Michael Thomas. So this kind of carries a little bit more weight for Michael Thomas because think about the Saints offense over the last 5 years. He's been there 5 years. So think about their offense. Name the number 2 receiver on their team that has been of any note over the last 5 years. I'll wait while you try to conjure up a name. The best number 2 receiver he's ever had in New Orleans was literally there last year, and he didn't even play with him in Emmanuel Sanders. So he's never really had another guy. They've used Alvin Kamara as another option out of the backfield. They've used the tight end position, whether it was Jimmy Graham or it was Jared Cook Jr., but they've used the tight ends. There never has really been another guy next to Michael Thomas to help take off some of that pressure. Whereas Mike Evans has had help throughout his career. So he hasn't necessarily needed to compile 110 catches for his team to be successful. But I said all that to say this: 100 plus catch seasons. Michael Thomas 3, Mike Evans 0. No career 100 catch seasons for Mike Evans. 3 of such for Michael Thomas. From 2017 to 2019, Michael Thomas had over 100 catches. That streak was broken last year, but he was on a streak where he was catching over 100 balls on average each and every single year for the last 3 years. 15 yards per catch average or more seasons. This is a big stat because if you're getting a bunch of dink and dunk throws, if you can compile 110 catches, I remember this very vividly as a Washington fan. One year, Lavernius Coles was in Washington, and he had 93 catches, and he did not eclipse 1,000 yards. He had like 93 catches for like 910 yards or 980 yards or something like that. And I remember that season very vividly because it was a bunch of bubble screens, slants, outs, things that were 7 yards and in. That was the first year of Joe Gibbs back in the NFL. He was coming with this archaic offense that he was running back in Gibbs 1.0. The league had passed him by. He didn't evolve. He didn't even want to run shotgun. So Remember, Gibbs 1.0 didn't run shotgun. So there wasn't a lot of nuance to the offense. And so it was a lot of get it out of the hands of the quarterback quickly. And Lavernius Coles didn't have a lot of yards after catch. Everything was short underneath. And he didn't average a ton of yards on those receptions. So, yeah, he had 90-something catches, but who gives a shit if you didn't even average 10 yards a grab? For receivers, anything north of 15, and that's a really good average. Michael Thomas, 0 seasons of 15 yards per completion or catch in his career. Meanwhile, Mike Evans has 4 such seasons of that. So what I'm telling you is Evans has been a bigger threat in his career, bigger plays, a bigger threat down the field to take the top off of the defense, a bigger threat to make a play down the field, stretch the football field vertically, whereas Michael Thomas has done most of his work underneath and in the intermediate. So you won't find a bunch of 65-yard Michael Thomas touchdowns. You won't find a bunch of 55-yard Michael Thomas touchdowns. Whereas with Mike Evans, you'll get the occasional 56-yarder. You'll get the occasional 68-yard bomb where he catches it and runs away. There's a lot of underneath work being done by Michael Thomas. And while there is something to be said about that, the amount of catches that you make, the high volume number of catches, and your ability to continue to move the sticks and things of that nature, there's also something to be said about being able to move to push the football down the field and make plays as a big threat down the field. And in that department, I think Mike Evans has Michael Thomas beat clearly. And then finally, we still have 2 more categories. Touchdown seasons, 10 touchdowns or more seasons. That's self-explanatory. You get in the red zone. Is this a guy that I can count on to make it happen? Or, the easiest way to score is to get a 45-yard touchdown or a 30-yard touchdown, something not in the red zone. Harder when you get down there and they're looking at you, and they're game planning to stop you. That said, Michael Thomas, 0 10 touchdown seasons. Mike Evans, 3 10 touchdown or more seasons in his career. So again, we're talking about a guy that finds a way to get it done when we get into the red zone, when we get down close by the end zone. There's one guy getting it done. There's another guy that he's getting it done, but not at a high enough clip. And keep in mind, some of those touchdowns from Mike Evans coming outside of the red zone. But I don't really care how you do it. I just need you to find the end zone. And touchdowns aren't always the greatest barometer. There were years in there where Julio didn't have many touchdowns to speak of. Now, I remember one year, I think he only had like 2 or 3 touchdowns receiving. Still a dominant force, just not getting in the end zone for whatever reason. So can't always go off of that, but that's still a big number. 3 10-plus touchdown seasons for Mike Evans, 0 for Michael Thomas. And then finally, years of 15-plus games played. The biggest ability is availability in this league. If you aren't able to play, you can't help your team. You can't be effective. So with that said, you're going to miss a game or two most years. If you can play all 16, that's awesome. You're going to play through some injuries. You're going to gut it out. That's what these Warriors do on a yearly basis, is they gut it out. You have no idea what guys are dealing with. They just suck it up and play. But as a receiver, you're going to tweak an ankle. There might be a hamstring. There's going to be some kind of soft tissue injury that may keep you out for a week or 2. With that said, can you play 15 games? You're going to miss a game. There's the assumption that you're going to miss a game. Can you play at least 15 games or more? In Michael Thomas's career, he's played in 15 or more games 4 out of his 5 seasons, obviously with last year being the one season where he wasn't able to do that. In Mike Evans' career, he's played in 15 or 16 games in 6 out of 7 of his years in the league, with the only season him not playing 15 games, he played 13 in 2019. So what I'm essentially telling you is Mike Evans doesn't miss a lot of games. Neither does Michael Thomas up until last year. But Mike Evans doesn't miss a ton of games. So when it's all said and done, they each have their strengths. Evans is the more productive, more reliable, big play target, and he gets it done in the red zone. Whereas Thomas is a more of a high volume physical specimen that amasses a ton of yards through his volume. He's like a high volume scorer in the NBA. Yep. He's averaging 28.9 points a game, but he's also taking 31 shots to get it. So you got to kind of gauge between which is which. At the end of the day, it's just what flavor are you? Do you want the big, lanky, tall receiver that can kind of go vertical and kind of work all three levels of the football field? Or do you want the big physical receiver that really is more of a two-level receiver, but he's a damn good one that can separate and can win for you on third downs? Which is your flavor? I think Mike Evans doesn't get the respect that he deserves. I think a lot of times when we start listing off receivers in this league and who's the best, Mike Evans' name rarely comes up, if ever. I can't think of a time where someone's put me on the spot and said, who's your top 5 receivers? I don't think there's ever been a time where Michael or Mike Evans' name popped into my head. Not once. And then it's not until we start talking about top 10 does he start to come into play. And it's still not until we get towards 7, 8, 9, 10, right around the 8, 9, 10 range. You know, there's always another guy. Like, if you would have asked me after the end of this last season, I'd name Justin Jefferson. He just got in the league. He only played in one season. But he's more dynamic and flamboyant than Mike Evans. So Mike Evans just kind of goes about his business human-like. He doesn't say a ton. He's not flashy, but he gets the job done every single year. I don't love the fact that Mike Evans isn't a great separator. I think he pushes off a ton, especially when the ball's down the field. He has to push off a lot, can't separate, but he gets results, man. Michael Thomas, at one point after the 2019 season, a lot of people were saying it was either him or DeAndre Hopkins for best receiver in the league. We've never had that discussion about Mike Evans. And that may be our fault, not his. But we've never once had the discussion that Mike Evans is the best receiver in the league. There was this thought that Mike Evans or Michael Thomas was the best receiver in the league last year, after the 2019 season, excuse me. Now, you could also go to the argument, well, look who his quarterback was. He played with Drew Brees. You know, Mike Evans has played with a slew of quarterbacks. You know, Jameis Winston isn't chopped liver, okay? He's not minced meat. And we saw what, Evans did this year with Tom Brady. It was good. It wasn't great. He barely got over 1,000 yards this year, like 1,040 or something like that. It's not like he tore lit the world on fire, but he did have a ton of touchdowns, like 13 touchdowns, though. He found pay dirt. And so I want to know what you guys think. Who's the better of the two receivers? You got to pick one. I'll give you mine after I hear who you guys have. I'll give you mine in a bit, but who's the one? Choose wisely. Let's get to your comments. I want to take comments based off of what we just talked about, and then any other comments that are out there, we'll take those afterwards. I do have a super chat, so I'm going to take that one first. And this one is from my guy, Silver V. Silver Villains, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Silver V, writes, do you think John Gruden is a top 10 coach? If not, how much trouble are the Raiders really in for the next 5 to 7 years? No, I don't think John Gruden is a top 10 coach. Now, here's the thing. I haven't compiled a list. I may sit down, make a list, and he may be 9th or 10th. But in the league right now, I'm pretty sure I could sit down, come up with a list of guys that I think are way better coaches. And not just from an X and O standpoint, but, putting guys in a position to succeed, but also adapting to the NFL, the new NFL game. I think John Gruden still views the NFL through his 1990s prism. And, there's nothing wrong with that if you're super effective with it, but they've had modest success. So I think that he needs to adapt to some of the parts that he has. He's still trying to play. He's trying to make these Raiders into his, late early 2000s Buccaneers offenses with Joey Galloway. And that's why he drafted, Henry Ruggs. And he had Joe Jurevicius, and he wants, the kid from South Carolina that they drafted last year to be, a Joe Jurevicius type, a big physical receiver, go up, get the football. He's got his tight end, that can make plays, but it just feels too much like a 1990s offense that Gruden isn't adapting to and changing to the times. We play in an NFL that's more diverse than ever before, and I just feel like he's stuck in a different century, really. But he's a good coach. He's just not a great coach. And this league doesn't have a bunch of great coaches. So I could sit down, make a list, and he could be in the top 10. He's not a top 5 coach, though. I can assure you of that. So the Raiders could be in trouble because they signed him to a 10-year contract. They could be in trouble. But he's, to me, the least of their problems. Like, if Mike Mayock can't do a better job of drafting players, that's the bigger issue. That's a problem right now. And I'm a Mike Mayock guy, but he's at some point you got to be able to acknowledge he's wetting the bed. He's currently in the process of wetting the bed in Vegas with some of these picks. Some of them he's hit on, but you can't miss on the early ones, and he's missed far too often on these early draft selections. So there's some of that, and I just think that's a byproduct of the record and what the Raiders have done. Somewhat is a byproduct of some of the players that you're selecting. So. I think that's the bigger issue is the players that they're picking. And not to say that Gruden doesn't have anything to do with that. He's signing off on these players being selected as well. So that's something to keep in mind. But in any event, thank you for the super chat, Silver V. Let's get to some comments and see what you guys have to say. Make sure you're using the hashtag LouieTLive. If you want your comment read. Let's see. I don't see anybody using the hashtag. You guys aren't following directions. I'll just read a couple of these, and then we'll get to some comments that actually did use the hashtag LouieTLive. So let's see. Rockman says Michael Thomas is the best wide receiver in the NFL. That's his opinion. So he's going with Michael Thomas, obviously. Captain Spartan says, I feel like Mike Evans has more consistency than Thomas. He does, but does that make him a better receiver? That's the question that I'm asking. Which one would you take? In a I gotta have it moment. I need it right now. I'm starting a team, and I'm drafting a receiver, and it's one of these two guys. Which one of these guys are you taking? That's what I want to know. Starting a team, you got your quarterback, you got your offensive line. Now you need a receiver, and I'm not asking you about the rest of the guys in the league. These two guys are on the table. You got to take one. Who are you taking? Rich says, I got Thomas, and it's not even close. He says Thomas is a top 3 wide receiver. Okay, so he's definitive with that. Calvin Krim says, dude had 9 touchdowns 3 times, though, in terms of Michael Thomas. It's not 10. 10's not 9, all right? Or 9's not 10, I should say. But he's been close. But he didn't have 10. Got Any Grapes says, geez, the numbers looking like Thomas might not be better than Evans. That's where people kind of get the game twisted up is I don't think people realize what Mike Evans has been doing because Tampa hasn't been good. They haven't played in playoff games. They've been 7-9 or 8-8 almost every year. So it's easy to kind of just throw him, similar to what people do with Keenan Allen. It's easy to just take Keenan Allen and throw him to the back of the bus because they ain't winning a bunch of ball games. So what he's doing out there is cool, but it's irrelevant in the grand scheme of things because they're not winning any games. It's easy to do that with him, with Mike Evans. But Evans is putting up numbers out there. And that's part of the reason I wanted to do this, kind of shed some light on that. But also I wanted to know how you guys felt about him and how you felt about Michael Thomas. Got a super chat here from Gunny Man. Gunny Man, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, my guy. Gunny Man writes, I'll take Evans. Thomas is a bit of a diva. Evans plays hurt, doesn't complain about lack of balls. Like Jordan says, I'll take the guy with the ring. I think that is a very, very astute observation by you, Gunny Man. That's something that I did not bring up, but that's something that I do take into consideration. Michael Thomas is always getting into verbal spats with people on socials. He gets in his feelings quite a bit. Mike Evans is he just goes about his business human like. You don't hear him. And that's part of the reason that he's not all, I told you, he's not a bunch of flash. He's more substance than flash. You know, a lot of these receivers, the reason we know their name, the reason their name is constantly in our mouth is because they're doing things other than performing on the field. Now, they got to perform on the field for you to give a shit, but they're doing things off the field to create this environment where their name is on the tip of your tongue. So when you start talking about best receivers in the league, oh, Odell Beckham, oh, Michael Thomas, is it because they're producing at a high level, which those dudes do on the field, or is it because they're kicking goalposts or they're getting into it with Josh Norman on socials? And because we're constantly talking about them, these are guys that you recognize and are always talking about. So they're in the front of your mind. They're in that consciousness that you have to have when you start making a list of receivers. Because Mike Evans is putting up similar numbers. He's not putting up the kind of numbers Michael Thomas has put up. The 2019 season for Michael Thomas was ridiculous. 149 catches, 1,700 plus yards. You know, I don't know how many touchdowns he had, probably, 7, 8, or 9. But he was ridiculous in that year. You know, Mike Evans hasn't had a season even remotely close to that. But what he's done is he's peppered you with 1,000-yard seasons over and over and over and over again. And then the occasional 13 or 12 touchdown season to go with it. So, there's something to be said about that. I do think Thomas is a bit of a diva. I don't like calling receivers. I don't like calling another grown man a diva. I don't like that phrase. I do think he's a bit of someone that likes the limelight. I think he's extra. Let's call him that. He's extra. Dudes that do the most are extra. Odell Beckham Jr. is extra. I think that Thomas is extra. Very, very much so. And there's something to be said about guys that just go about their business quietly. And that's Mike Evans. So thank you for that super chat, Gunny Man. Let's see. Calvin Krim. Let's go to Calvin Krim, who says, let's see. Got to get this thing acting dumb. Let's get to Calvin Krim. We'll do it this way. Calvin Krim says, Thomas is better and it's not even close. We're talking about a top 10 guy versus a top 3 guy. Ouch. That hurts. But you know what? I understand where he's coming from with that comment, because what you're essentially saying is what I just said 7 minutes ago, which is Michael Thomas was once viewed as the best receiver in the league after 2019. And if he wasn't, he was 2 or he was 3. Whereas Mike Evans has never been in that discussion, not once. And so I totally get where Calvin Krim is coming from. I totally understand. And he's a physical specimen, and he does all the dirty work. He's physical. I get it. Totally get it. Got another comment here. This one is from, and so what's happening right now is we are having some inclement weather outside, and I think it's impacting the setup because on my computer in front of me, it's not, the stream isn't working. And then I went to my other screen and it's slow. Like I hit Bucks Nation like 15 times. It's just showing up. My guy Buck Nation says, Mike Evans, come on, been underrated 4 years, but because Bucks haven't been good, no exposure for Evans or Levante David. And I just kind of touched on that, but that's how it happens. You know, talked about that with Keenan Allen as well. When you're not winning, when you're not on a team that is garnering national attention, it's easy to sweep what a guy is doing under the rug. But again, the biggest difference is Thomas was dominant at a level that few receivers achieve in this league, and Evans has never been that. He's just, again, he's bludgeoned you to death with consistency, and there's something to be said about that. See if we got any more comments. Got another one here from Michael Sachs Jr. And it says, Evans gets locked down by Lattimore. I mean, we see these things happen all the time. There have been matchups where Thomas hasn't had his way with corners. Lattimore and Evans have this, back and forth with each other. It's fun to watch. They take it personal. I love it. But Buck Nation says Evans is the bigger threat and bigger playmaker, period. He's the bigger playmaker. I would agree with you. I don't think I can't subscribe to he's the bigger threat. I think he is the bigger playmaker down the field. But on 3rd and 7, I'm probably more scared of Michael Thomas than I am Mike Evans. Now, with that said, I'm probably more afraid of Mike Evans on 1st and 10 or 2nd and 1 because of the threat of play action fake and Mike Evans getting vertical. I don't really worry about Michael Thomas getting vertical on me. So, not to say that he can't, but that's not how they utilize him in New Orleans. So, there's a lot of, back and forth, which is why I chose these two receivers. Buck Nation obviously is going to be biased. Mike Evans is his guy. Got another comment here from Captain Spartan. He writes, speaking of receivers, how are we going to select these guys going into the Hall of Fame? Because everyone's number one wide receiver nowadays is probably going to get over 1,000 and have the stats. Not everybody's number one receiver is going to get over 1,000 because you just don't know who's throwing them the football. You don't know how they're going to stay healthy. There are a lot of different factors. How good is the offensive line protecting the quarterback that's trying to get them the football? It varies in different spots. If you play with a good enough quarterback, you're a hell of a receiver. Like Devontae Adams, if he's not playing with Aaron Rodgers, is he Devontae Adams? I don't know. He's a hell of a receiver. I think at this point now, it wouldn't matter who he played with. He's a beast. But he needed to gain his confidence. He needed to get his foot in the league and know that he could do it. And having Aaron Rodgers made his job a lot easier because go look at Devontae Adams' numbers. It took him like 4 or 5 years to eclipse 1,000 yards in this league. Like, I'm probably exaggerating. It's probably more like 3 or 4 years. But that's still a long time. You got guys that come in right out of the gate. Odell Beckham, Michael Thomas, Mike Evans. These guys they came in right out of the gate 1,000 yards, right out of the gate. And it took Devontae Adams like 3 or 4 years to get to 1,000 yards. Now, there was a year in there where he had like 997 or something like that, if my memory serves me correct. But still, took him a while to find his footing, to establish himself as one of the premier receivers in the league. But if you don't have that quarterback that gives you the leeway to be able to do that, maybe he never becomes that guy. So, yeah, I understand where you're coming from, but at the same time, Not everybody's a Hall of Famer. I've made that abundantly clear. You know, I got into an argument with a show host. I was on his show, and he was like, it wasn't an argument. It was just a disagreement. Like he felt like London Fletcher is a Hall of Famer, and I'm like, no, he's not a Hall of Famer. He thought I was going to say yes because London Fletcher played for Washington, and I'm like, no, he's not a Hall of Famer, not in my book. And he was shocked, and I'm like, just because you played a bunch of years and compiled a bunch of numbers doesn't make you a Hall of Famer. Like, where are your All Pros? Where are your Pro Bowl appearances? Like, when were you ever viewed as the best or one of the best at your respective position while you played? That was never London Fletcher. He was really good. Nobody ever considered London Fletcher to be great. I think he made like 1 or 2 Pro Bowls, and they were towards the end of his career. They were almost like mercy Pro Bowl seasons for him, where you're like, hey, look, man, this dude's been playing like 14 years. He's never made it. And a couple of dudes bowed out, and he ended up being like a third alternate, and he got in. Like, I mean, he was never an All-Pro in this league. He was good. He wasn't great. He's not a Hall of Famer player. He's not a Hall of Fame player because he amassed all these tackles, and he was an Iron Man, and he didn't miss games, and he played a bunch of years. That doesn't make you a Hall of Fame player. Can't let everybody in. This is the discussion that Deion Sanders was talking about. This is the discussion I've had with you guys on numerous occasions. Everybody's not a Hall of Fame player. Just because you were really good doesn't mean you need to get into the Hall of Fame. Is your impact that profound that the NFL can't leave you off the ballot? Have to have you in the Hall of Fame. When we're talking about your era of football, does your name constantly get brought up as one of the best? If that's not the case, you shouldn't be in the Hall. That's my standing on that. So, in any event, let's get to some comments, some random comments now. I think we've touched on it enough here. Calvin Krim, that's a nice comment there. Let me show that one. My guy Calvin Krim says, Mike Evans is the Curtis Martin of wide receivers. Well said, Calvin Krim. Well put. I think that is a great comparison right now to where he is. And remember, Curtis Martin got in very quietly into the Hall of Fame. Nobody was paying attention. You look at his numbers and you're like, yo, Curtis Martin was a beast, but he got in, and I don't think a lot of people recognize just how good Curtis Martin was. And he didn't say a lot. He just went out and performed at a high level. So I definitely feel that one from Calvin Krim. My answer. So I got 2 answers, and I'm going to choose one, okay? I'm not going to bitch up on you. I'm not going to, play both sides of the fence. If you told me on 3rd and 7, I had to have it right now. Game on the line. If I don't convert this, it's 4th and 7. Game on the line. I got to have it. I want Michael Thomas as my wide receiver. Because I think somebody's going to lock up Mike Evans, that slender frame. And then he's going to be looking at the official, or he's going to push off. Give me Michael Thomas. He's going to get open. He's going to force his way open, or he's just going to separate. Or if they throw it in a tight window, he's going to come down with the ball. But if you're talking overall wide receiver, I'm starting a team, I'm compiling talent, I'm taking Mike Evans. Here's why. Because I know this guy's going to play every single week for the most part. I know this guy's going to produce at a high level. I don't think he's limited in any way, whereas I don't think Michael Thomas can get over the top vertically. Mike Evans has proven the ability to do that and go up and get the football at its highest point, even if he hasn't separated. I just love the consistency, the body of work Mike Evans has provided. Now, that said, Michael Thomas, to me, is the more superior talent. I just don't like all the things that come with Michael Thomas off the field. That's probably more so why I would go. If we're taking the off the field stuff out of the equation, give me Michael Thomas. Because I've said this already. When we have the conversation of top 5 receivers, his name gets brought up. Mike Evans' name doesn't. Now that he's with Brady, my perception of him has not changed one bit. He went to the Super Bowl. He was the best receiver on the Super Bowl winning team last year. I don't give a shit. My perception has not changed one bit on Mike Evans. Hell of a receiver, really good player, top 10 receiver in this league. He's not in the top 5. And he never will be. His talents don't suggest that he'll be a top 5 receiver. The production will always jump out at you. The fact this man has had 7 straight 1,000-yard seasons to start his career. No other receiver in NFL history. Not Jerry Rice, not Randy Moss. None of these guys have ever done that. Chris Carter, none of them. Only Mike Evans. If I'm starting a team, I want the selfless guy. I want the guy that doesn't make it about himself, but is about everybody else. I want the guy that I know is going to show up, and no matter how he's feeling, bad hammy, turned ankle, he's still going to go out and get me 7 balls for 101 yards. That's Mike Evans. We saw, and look, I don't ever like to talk about guys' injuries and their situation and whether they can or can't play. I don't like to play that game. I'm not in your body. But I saw Mike Evans last year. He make a conscious decision. I don't feel like playing. I felt like this. I don't know this to be a fact. But it felt like he wanted out of New Orleans last year. It felt Trent Williams-ish to me. Like he was trying to force their hand and force his way out of New Orleans. It felt that way to me. And then all the verbal spats with people off the field, they're insignificant. Why are you arguing with them? Play ball. So, talent-wise, give me Michael Thomas. But if we're including all of the off-the-field stuff, which you have to, that's a part of it, give me Mike Evans. Let's get to some comments real quick before we move on to our final segment of the show. Start here with Captain Spartan, who says, how do you feel about the rest of the Brave season now that Acuna is out for the season? I personally think it puts a dagger in our playoff hopes. Oh, we're dead. The real question now becomes, are you buyers or sellers at the trade deadline? I think the Braves are now sellers. You could see a guy like Freddie Freeman get traded. It sounds far-fetched. They haven't signed him to a long-term deal yet. I look at them and they may start, selling off pieces of their roster. I feel like baseball is one of those interesting sports because if you're not in it that season, you can do some rash things if you're not level-headed. Double-A, our general manager, is level-headed. He's not going to do anything stupid. So I don't see him starting to auction off parts of what is a young baseball team that, with better pitching could be in the World Series every single year. So I don't think they're going to do anything crazy. But this year, I think it's dead. I don't see how we are able to muster the strength without arguably our best hitter in Ozuna, who's done, and now Acuna, who's our best overall player. And the pitching hasn't gotten any better. We're done. Stick a fork in us. We're done. Let's see if we got any more comments. Captain Spartan also says, not that he was underrated, but what player do you think often got forgotten about when it comes to just how dominant they were? Don't be biased and say Santana Moss. I wasn't going to say Santana Moss. So people forget how dominant they were in the league. There are several guys that I don't think necessarily got their just due while they were in the league. Like, I'll give you an example. Jared Allen, edge rusher, Chiefs, Vikings, late in his career with the Panthers. I don't think people realized how good Jared Allen was. How this dude was bagging 13, 14, 15, 17. I'm going to look at his numbers real quick. Jared Allen is always one of those dudes that I don't think people really understood just how good he was in his career at bagging a quarterback. You ain't used to seeing a white dude I hadn't seen a white dude have an impact like that at that position since Kevin Green. Like, you don't see that's a position usually reserved for brothers to dominate. Much like cornerback and running back. When you see a white dude dominate, you get excited. I get excited. I can't speak for you. Anybody out there. Christian McCaffrey makes me excited. You don't see white dudes dominating at the running back position. I'm dying for a white corner to come in and dominate. That's why everybody loved Jason Sehorn. Because you don't get white corners. That's a brother position. So, edge rusher, is another one of those positions. Now we got the Boza brothers. You got TJ Watt. So you're getting some white dudes that's coming in and dominating. But Jared Allen was a guy that I don't think got enough credit for what he was doing. So listen to these numbers. In 2013, he had 11 and a half. 2012, he had 12. In 2011, the man had 22 sacks. Okay, 22 sacks. In 2010, he had 11. In 2009, he had 14 and a half. In 2008, he had 14 and a half. In 2007, he had 15 and a half. And in 2005, he had 11. So you're talking about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 seasons where this man had double-digit sacks. And of those 8, 1, 2, 3, 4 of them were north of 14. And 2 of them were north of 15, and 1 was north of 20. But yet, when we talk about pass rushers in this league over the last decade plus, when does Jared Allen's name get brought up? It doesn't. We skip over him, conveniently skip over him. As if we'll go to Julius Peppers. I'll bet you Jared Allen had more career sacks than J. Pep. I could be wrong. Let's check. So in his career, he finished with 136 sacks, did Jared Allen. Let's go to Julius Peppers real quick and see where he – and I bet you J. Pep about to make me look like a fool. Let's check out J. Pep. So 136 is the number. Yeah, I thought he was going to make me look like a dumbass. 159 for J. Pep. All right, 159 for J. Pep. Now, the biggest difference is J. Pep played longer than Jared Allen. I got to go back and check how many more years were tacked on to his career, but it was just a steady diet. This is the Michael Thomas versus Mike Evans conversation all over again. Julius Peppers doesn't have a single season with 15 sacks or more. Not one. Not a single one. But what he does have is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 seasons of double-digit sacks. That's what he does have. Whereas you had a 15 and a half and a 22 from Jared Allen. You just get a steady diet of 10, 10 and a half, 11, 12, 12 and a half, 13, 10, 11. Those are the numbers that J-Pep's putting up. So you would immediately go, oh, Julius Pep is one of the best pass rushers over the last 15 years. I bet you wouldn't bring up Jared Allen. So that would be my guy. Jared Allen would be the guy that I would bring up. Got some super chats, so let's knock these out real quick. Got one here from Calvin Krim. Thank you for the super chat, Calvin Krim. Greatly appreciate you, my guy, Calvin Krim. Writes, first of all, is this your second one? I feel like this is your second one. This might be your first one. No, this is your first one. Thank you for the super chat, Calvin Krim. He says, it does feel different because Evans won a Super Bowl and Thomas was hurt last year. So I understand why this one is tough. Great show, Lou. That's why I did it. Because if we were coming off of last year's season with Thomas, or 2019, season with Thomas, there's not a discussion to be had. You're taking Michael Thomas. I would have to go to DeAndre Hopkins and Michael Thomas to make it a discussion. But because he's coming off of a lackluster season, he's fallen back to the pack a bit. Now, and Mike Evans won a Super Bowl, so he's now more in the limelight. Now you can compare the two, and there's a real discussion to be had. It doesn't hurt that they're in the same division either. But thank you for that super chat, Calvin Krim. Got another one here from my guy, Gunnyman. Double up. Thank you for doubling up, Gunnyman. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Gunnyman writes, Thomas equals Gary Clark, Evans equals Art Monk. I can get with that. Now, obviously, Gary Clark wasn't a malcontent or he wasn't a problem off the field, but I think you're just talking about their games on the field. I would agree with that. Art Monk was the more consistent, dependable wide receiver. Wasn't really going to hurt you deep. Even though you say Evans could get vertical. Monk could get vertical, but that was really reserved for Ricky Sanders and Gary Clark. They were the vertical threats. Monk did everything else. Thomas, I would actually reverse the two. from a vertical stretching of the football field standpoint, but I get where you're going. Gary Clark was more of a guy that you could view as, one of the best in the league. Had the numbers that jumped out at you certain seasons where, Art Monk was just consistent. But Monk had those years where, remember, at one point when Art Monk retired, he was the NFL's leading reception leader. And I think at one point, Art Monk also had the most catches in a single season before that was shattered. So I don't want to just, I think it might actually be reversed. I think Thomas might be more of Art Monk, short to intermediate, high volume guy. And Clark would be more of Evans, but I can see where you have Thomas being Clark because of, the impact where we have a discussion, Gary Clark's, in a discussion as one of the top 5 receivers in the league at the time, that kind of discussion. But I think it would be reversed. I think it would be Gary Clark would be more like Mike Evans and Art Monk would be more like Michael Thomas, if you're asking me, but I digress. Thank you for the super chat and doubling up, Gunny Man. Twin D, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Twin D, writes, LT, I have a bone to pick with you. Uh-oh, what did I do? Says, I subscribe to your card channel solely to support. Now I find myself watching the videos, even though I have absolutely no time to watch more YouTube channels. Thanks a lot. Oh, got you hooked like dope. That was the point of me putting it on my original LouieTeeNetwork channel. Because I thought I would convert non-card collectors and people that just wanted to support the content that would just say, you know what, let me see what the hell Lou talking about with these cards. I thought I would be able to convert more of you. I was wrong. I failed miserably at that. And I can admit when I'm wrong. I don't have a problem admitting. The first step on the road to recovery is admitting that there's a problem. I have no problems admitting I made a mistake. So I just went ahead and righted what was a wrong. And I'm glad you're still supporting, because what I found is you can actually hurt yourself by doing it the way I did it. But I don't regret doing it the way that I did it. So I really appreciate you helping me out, Twin D, because I need a lot of help on that channel. It's not going to grow by itself. I not only need your subs, I need your eyes. I thought I could just get away with your subs. Those help, trust me. But watching helps even more because I need the watch time as well. So I'm glad that you subbed up and you said, let me see what he's doing. And I got you hooked now, and you just want to check it. So I really do appreciate you, Twin D. And you know what? I thought I was in trouble. I actually feel good now. That's a good problem to have. That I got you watching a little bit more YouTube than you should be. I'm happy about that. So thank you for that super chat. And I really do appreciate you, Twin D. All right. Got a comment here from Charles Hardy. He says, do you think our stadium will have a retractable roof? Heard it's supposed to be state of the art. I would assume that it will be a stadium with a retractable roof. Most of these new stadiums have retractable roofs. And if you're interested in getting a Super Bowl and you're in a cold weather state, which, the District of Columbia or Maryland, if you want to get technical, which is where Washington currently plays, it does get cold in the wintertime. There is a chance that it could snow. And the NFL doesn't want to run into the problem like they did in that Super Bowl. I think it was 43 with the Broncos and the Seahawks, where they got like 6 feet of snow the day after the Super Bowl, but they were scared that they were going to get avalanche the day of the Super Bowl. And it happened the day after. So if you want to host the Super Bowl, you got to be able to close that roof and keep the elements outside, similar to Minnesota. Minnesota's not getting a Super Bowl unless they got a retractable roof, because they got to be able to close that puppy up. So if it's 2 feet of snow outside, they say that's just outside. It's 75 degrees and feeling fine in here. So, I think state of the art, all that good jazz. We'll see what they decide to do, but that's the assumption. All right. Thank you guys for all of the comments. That was very spirited. That was a ton of fun. Now let's transition to our final segment of the show and garbage time. So I want to wrap up the show. It's kind of piggybacking off the heels of our last segment. One. There can only be one. And just for the record, my one overall is Mike Evans. If I'm talking talent just on the field, I'm taking Michael Thomas, just so we're clear on that. But garbage time. Isaac Bruce recently said in an article with CBS that because he and Torrey Holt won a Super Bowl championship, they're the best tandem in NFL history, not Randy Moss and Chris Carter. They didn't win a Super Bowl. And it got me to thinking about the whole discussion about ring versus no ring and what does that do to your legacy. Let's just before we get into all of that discussion, let's just take this and strip it down to its core. Who the hell is taking Isaac Bruce and Torrey Holt over Chris Carter and Randy Moss? Any hands out there? Show of hands. If you're out there, you can hear my voice, and you're taking Torrey Holt and Isaac Bruce over Randy Moss and Chris Carter, please put it in the comment section right now. State your case, let it be known, and I am going to shine a light on you. Right now, if you would take Torrey Holt and Isaac Bruce over prime Chris Carter and Randy Moss, 1998 Chris Carter and Randy Moss over greatest show on turf, 99, 2000 Torrey Holt, Isaac Bruce. If that's you, let your voice be heard right now. I don't expect anybody to show up in the comment section because that is a false statement. Just because they won a Super Bowl doesn't make Isaac Bruce and Torrey Holt better. Okay, they were on a better team. If Gary Anderson could make a goddamn field goal, which he hadn't missed all season, they would have went to the Super Bowl in 98, and they probably would have beaten the Denver Broncos. I contend that to this day. I will never let it go. You guys know how I feel about that. But that's another day. That's another discussion for another day. I don't want to go down that road because if I go down that hole, I may not come out of it. And I've done that on this podcast before. I just want to be able to say this. This whole notion that you got to have a ring to validate your career is stupid. Now, having a ring helps, especially when you're a quarterback, because you're the leader of the team. And it hurts Dan Marino that he doesn't have a ring. Anybody that watched Marino knows, though, this guy's one of the greatest quarterbacks they've ever seen. So despite not having a ring, Dan Marino's still effing Dan Marino. You're not going to tell me, well, Trent Dilfer won a Super Bowl, so he's technically better than Dan Marino. And I know that's extreme, right? Okay? But we can bring it to a quarterback that's Eli Manning has 2 Super Bowl rings. Is he better than Dan Marino? Hell no. Case closed. What are we talking about? And Eli Manning is going to get in the Hall of Fame, and I don't think he belongs, personally. But again, another discussion for another day. He's going to get in the Hall of Fame. But because he won 2 Super Bowls, that makes him better than Dan Marino, who won none? Give me a break. Stop. So this argument that Isaac Bruce has, it's faulty. Nobody in their right minds, unless you're a Rams fan and you're biased and you can't admit that at no point, and you could go look at the numbers, they put up some ridiculous numbers, did the Rams. Some of those years in there, stupid numbers, dumb. However, let's not kid ourselves, okay? Nobody's taking those 2 over Randy Moss and Chris Carter. Sorry, not sorry. Okay, let's keep it a buck. Matter of fact, let's keep it a buck and some change. I'm gonna keep it funky and filthy with y'all today. Ain't nobody taking Isaac Bruce and Torrey Holt over prime Randy Moss and Chris Carter. Show me the guy that's gonna do that, and I'll show you a guy that's either crazy, stupid, or both. Sorry, and I don't like to call names. I don't like to call names. So, my guy Del for SEO says if Marshall Faulk was on that team, wasn't on that team, they don't make the Super Bowl. I mean, again, everybody had their roles to play. Robert Smith was a hell of a running back on those Vikings teams. They're not as good without Robert Smith. So it goes both ways. Marshall Faulk was a massive part of their team. And you're right. Without Marshall Faulk, he was the MVP of those teams. Without him, they don't exist. I'm aware of that. You are as well. So at the end of the day, I know what Isaac Bruce is doing. He's trying to protect their legacy. Like, hey, don't forget about us. People want to shit on us. We're really good in our own right and give us our respect. I get that. Nobody wants to admit that somebody's better than them. But come on, bro. Don't go the Super Bowl route to try to validate your case. Because that's when I got to step in at that point and rip you to shreds. Now you done got my blood boiling. And now you made me feel like I need to jump to the defense of Randy Moss and Chris Carter when I really don't feel like I need to do that. But you want to pull the ring discussion out. Now I got to do that. Because that's not a valid reason to elevate yourself. Now, if it's really close and we need a deciding factor, then we can go to the rings. But that's not what this is. That's not what this is at all. At all. So, Sinclair says, Harrison and Wayne, I mean, they're in that discussion as well. They won a Super Bowl. I probably take Harrison and Wayne over Torrey Holt and Isaac Bruce. That, to me, is more of a discussion than Randy Moss and Chris Carter. That's tough. That's a real discussion. Not Randy Moss and Chris Carter. I'm sorry. I can't. Can't do it. I got a super chat from Gunny Man. I'm going to take this comment from Calvin Krim, and I'm going to take this super chat from Gunny Man, and that'll take us out of here. Calvin Krim says, I will say this. I didn't realize how many yards Bruce and Holt had throughout their careers, but their touchdowns don't compare to Carter and Moss. I told you guys, go look at the numbers. I told you there's some ridiculous numbers in some of those seasons. When you look up and, one guy's got 1,700 yards receiving, the other guy's got 1,500. You're like, what the were they doing on offense? Were they throwing on every play? And then you look up and Marshall Faulk's got 1,300 yards rushing and another 927 receiving. You're like, what the hell? How did they get so many opportunities to score so many points and so many offensive snaps to have this many yards? They were ahead of their time offensively. They really were. Gunny Man, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. I think this is your second. Might be your third. I think it's your second, though. Nope, this is your third. Thank you for tripling up, Gunny Man. Greatly appreciate you. As always, my guy, Gunny Man. Right. DC Django's. Django was a slave, became a free man and a bounty hunter. We can be proud of that. Damn well they ain't naming this team no damn DC Django's. Now, that's an interesting point that you make, though. In all seriousness, the team may be switched from Washington to DC. That's something to think about, because there's this outside chance that the District of Columbia becomes a state. And obviously they can't be Washington because there's already a state named Washington. So that's something to keep in mind as well. That's something to consider. When we start talking about the name of this team, it'll be interesting to see what the hell they decide to do. But in any event, that's going to do it for me, your man, Louie T, on the 180th installment of the Louie T Network podcast. That was a fun show. I really did enjoy myself quite thoroughly. So that's the first of many Raw Wednesday podcasts to come. Looking forward to having many more of these down the line. Remember, if you are out there and you haven't already done this, please do me a huge solid and subscribe to the Louie T Network for more great content. Turn on your notification bell so you don't miss a thing. And also make sure that you touch the like button. Don't be scared. It doesn't bite. Just touch that like button a little bit. All right. And so I really do appreciate you guys. If you haven't done so and you want to support the LTN movement, grab some merch from the store. The link is in the description. I'm sporting some merch right here. Got on one of my hashtag Mob Squad caps. We got LTN merch, Mob Squad merch, Washington merch, all you name it, we got it. Check out the Louie T Network store. The link is in the description down below. So, with that said, I am going to glide to the side and allow you guys to enjoy the rest of your day. I really do appreciate you guys chopping it up with your man Louie T here on this gloomy, nasty Wednesday. I mean, I'm surprised we didn't lose power. It was nasty outside, and I think it messed with my stream a bit, but we powered through. Thank God for Ethernet cord, because if we were going off a straight Wi-Fi, shit could have got dicey. But that's my former life. I don't deal with those problems anymore. I got Verizon now. So remember the Cox cable days when your man was over here struggling? There'd be times where I'd be doing a show and that shit would just drop. Man, I can't tell you how fortunate I am now to not be dealing with that shit anymore. I got one thing I want to ask y'all. You know what? I should save it for the next show. I'm going to let y'all go, man. I ain't going to talk y'all to death. Anyway, y'all have a good one. Enjoy the rest of y'all evening, night, what may have you. If you are a CCS subscriber, I'll be live tonight for an NFL mix and rip. Come join me and chop it up with me as I open up
LouieTeeNetwork.